Let us turn now to Ruprecht Polenz, one of the CDU's top foreign policy makers. Welcome again, sir, to DW. Let's look at this from the German perspective. The country's foreign minister, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, says this offensive is a turning point in the fight against the jihadists. Is that an opinion that you share?
Yes, I hope that Mosul will be freed by the coalition against Daesh. And I would emphasize the difference between fighting Daesh, as it is now done in Mosul, and what we see at the very same moment in Aleppo. If you turn to Aleppo, for instance, you would not be able to discuss with people from the Red Cross about some kind of humanitarian aid, because what Russia and the Syrian regime is doing, pretending to fight against ISIS, is totally different. Here in Mosul, we are fighting against ISIS.
OK, and we will talk more about Aleppo and the situation in Syria shortly. I wonder, though, if we in the West are prepared for the prospect of IS losing control of its last and biggest stronghold there in Iraq. Because if IS lose Mosul, will that not mean lots of returning jihadists coming back into Europe?
It could mean that, but on the other hand, having this kind of control about on land and territory, like Daesh tried to establish, means to have safe havens for planning terrorism. So you could put it either way. We have to fight them as long as they don't stop the international terrorism. And
sort of taking a step back from them arriving here, one wonders what the coalition has to do to stop Daesh fighters just disguising themselves as civilians, fleeing from Mosul.
It might be difficult, but this is nevertheless should be the task, that fighters should be kept as prisoners. And then we have in all, as in many other cases, the problem either to bring them to the International Criminal Court and or to have re-education programs, as we have seen it in other cases as well.
What more should Germany be doing in this fight?
We are helping with our tornadoes, and we have decided to add our aid with regard to AWACS air reconnaissance. And I think this is what Germany can do, and we have also equipped Peshmerga fighters with weapons. So we are doing a lot to support this coalition in the fight against Daesh. But on the other hand, we are doing a lot of help to overcome the terrible outcome of the Syrian civil war and of the devastations Daesh is doing in this country.
So does that mean you feel that Germany has done enough? There is no more that Germany could or should be doing?
I don't think that Germany will do more in the military sense. But we are doing a lot with regard to helping the Syrian population within the country and taking refugees from Syria more than many other countries.
Right.
And I think this is what we are doing.
The United States and Britain are talking about new economic sanctions against Russia. Chancellor Merkel is said to back this move. Where are you on this?
I'm on Merkel's side, and I think we should do what we can to stop what Russia is doing together with Iran and the Syrian regime in Syria. If you look, for instance, to Aleppo, while we are talking, children and women are dying by Russian aircraft or by barrel bombs thrown down from the Assad regime. And this has to be stopped. And if we cannot intervene militarily because we have not the means, not the will, take it how you like it, we have to use other means to stop the Russian procedure.
It's interesting that you call into question whether or not the West is able to do more, because clearly it's a case of political will.
Yeah, we have seen that the United States, for instance, are not willing to engage in a deeper way, as, for instance, they did in Afghanistan or in Iraq. The United States are telling us it's not our national interest to stop the war in Syria.
So can Germany, can the EU only proceed if the United States gets deeper into this?
if we see on one side Russia with nuclear weapons, I think it is impossible for Germany to go into a direct confrontation with Russia. I would also not suggest the United States should do it. But to have more pressure on Russia and on the Iranian regime and on the Assad regime to stop this war, I think this is doable and it is necessary. And having more sanctions would be one way to do it.
But yeah, you mentioned that the fact that Russia has nuclear weapons. Do you anticipate, do you see a likelihood, a possibility of the conflict in Syria going nuclear?
No, I don't think so. But if you listen to Putin, he is always talking about this option. He is now sending short-range missiles to Kaliningrad to threaten the Baltic states. And these short-range missiles can be equipped with nuclear warheads. So we see Russian moves, Russian language, and we have to deal with it. And not to say we should also threaten with things like that, but we have to take it seriously.
So there's talk of increased financial sanctions. What else?
It depends. You know, we have sanctions have the disadvantage that they usually have an impact only, let's say, after months, maybe after years. But nevertheless, sanctions have also political meaning, and this is immediate. If Russia, for instance, would see that the European Union is united, even in its stand in Syria vis-à-vis the regime, Iran and Russia, it would impress Russia. But if they see, as it is unfortunately now the case, that even in Germany we have a discussion, we have 2 or even more states within the European Union who would not join into further sanctions, then, of course, Russia is better off.
Just on a final note then, so we've talked about what's going on in Syria and we've also talked about what's going on in Iraq. Are there any lessons that one conflict can draw from the other?
Yeah, of course, we have learned from Iraq that it is easier to get Saddam Hussein overthrown than to establish a valid and strong democracy in this country. And this, of course, will also be true finally in Syria.
So we have to think about what comes next.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us, Ruprecht Polenz.
Thank you.
Thank you.